Hello everybody, my name is Sheila SL Reads, and today I'm going to be bringing you my very late June wrap-up. So during the month of June, which was Pride Month, my plan was to read a bunch of LGBTQIA+ books or graphic novels, or just try and educate myself more. I am bisexual, but I like to learn a lot more about the community. So the first book that I read during June was The Rules and Regulations for Mediating Myths and Magic by F.T. Lukens, and this was just, a fantastic book. I feel like I keep talking about it and I don't know who I've been talking about it to. This was a fantastic book and exactly what I wanted, and I kind of just stumbled across it, so I'm very lucky for that. This is about a high school student who was kind of just trying to get through his senior years, and during this book you find out that he's a bisexual teen who has a huge crush on the hottest boy in school. Not just the hottest gay boy, bi boy in school, just the hottest boy in school, and it seems like that guy kind of likes him back. But besides that just YA contemporary romance sort of setup, the main character, whose name is Bridger, which I think is a little strange, but just go with it. He has a part-time job as the assistant to the intermediary between the real world and the world of cryptids. So that involves Bigfoot or any urban legends, anything like that. I adore cryptids and I would die for all of them. Pretty much that's all America is about, is just all these random urban legends that are pretty much the same thing. But yeah, I gave this 5 stars and I'm currently reading an arc of the second book and it is going fantastic so far. The next book that I read in June was If I Was Your Girl by Meredith Russo. I read this on my Kindle, so I do not have a physical copy to hold up for you, but this was a fantastic book. It's about a trans girl who leaves her hometown because she's been bullied for being trans, and she had a situation where people came and stormed into the bathroom where she was, and it was just all these bad things, and a lot of this information is given to you via flashback, so I don't want to spoil it, but you do get it even though the story does start after all this stuff has happened. But she ends up going to live with her father as her parents are separated in this new town. The thing about this new town is that nobody knows that she's trans, and the main character doesn't really want people to know because of all the things that happened to her and all that she went through in order to come out, transition, all that kind of stuff. It's just a very difficult thing seeing how happy she is in her life, and then terrified of the fact that people are going to find out that she is a trans girl. While there are definitely some stressful moments, and I will link my Goodreads review for this down below because I do talk about some of the triggers that you might find in this, it is definitely a fantastic book and I definitely recommend you read it. The next book that I read was Bingo Love by T. Franklin. It's a graphic novel that I read on my Kindle and it was quite adorable, to be honest. While the graphic novel started as a romance between teenagers in the 60s or something, it ended up going through their entire lives and they meet up again once they're older with families and everything. You just see their love story and how it transcends these generations and everything. Also, it's just really cute to have two grandmothers falling in love. The next book that I read is in the public domain, so if you're looking to buy it on Amazon or anything, just go Google it, and it is Carmilla by J. Sheridan Le Fanu. And this also relates to the next book that I read, which was the Carmilla book adaptation. So Carmilla is this web series. It's about a sapphic vampire at a college, and there's all this mystery happening. She ends up seducing / falling in love with her roommate, who was investigating the entire situation. I will link it in the cards so that you can go check it out if you want. I wanted to compare the web series to the original text that it is from because it is actually based off of the first vampire story, which predates Dracula, which is called Carmilla. So it is a novella which came out sometime in the 1800s. It was okay. It was very short because it was a novella, and I did the whole mystery of it and how they wouldn't straight up come out and say that there was a vampire on the loose. I guess maybe because that wasn't a term that they used or anything, but it was heavily implied. But at the same time, there were some things plot-wise that didn't make sense. They're heading to this castle to go confront these vampires. They don't explain why they knew that they were supposed to go there. The novelization of the web series, however, I would not recommend you read it unless you liked the web series and you have already seen the web series. I watched the first 2 seasons of it, so I haven't even seen all of it. But the writing style is very colloquial. It is something that if you watch the web series, you like how the characters talk and how they think and everything, then you are going to enjoy having this backstory to it, especially because the web series is vlog style, so you don't see everything that's happening that you end up hearing about later. I feel even to me, as someone who did enjoy the web series, it was kind of cringy at moments and just kind of grated on my nerves, so I'd just be careful about that. The next book that I read was Laura Dean Keeps Breaking Up With Me by Rosemary Valero O'Connell. This was a graphic novel and it was absolutely beautiful. It was done in this style where it was only black and white and this one shade of pink, which I love me some black and white graphic novels, and I also love a pop of color. I'm just gonna say, I wish that I did not relate to this as much as I did for one of my past relationships, but I did, and that's just something I have to accept. But besides that, it was a fantastic story, and it was a lot about learning what you deserve, and learning that just because sometimes somebody treats you nice and because you're in love with them doesn't mean that you should be with them if they don't treat you nice all the time. And if they're doing shit behind your back and they're making you distance yourself from your friends, all that stuff, is just recognizing unhealthy relationships, even if they might not be outright abusive, is really important, and that's something that teenagers I feel like struggle with. They don't have a lot to base it off of to understand like what that means and what a healthy relationship is, especially because a lot of people do see unhealthy relationships in family members, in media, stuff like that. The next book that I read was Elysium by Nora Sakavic. Nora Sakavic is the author of the All for the Game series, which is one of my favorite series of all time. And so when she announced that she was writing this like urban fantasy-esque thing, I was pretty interested, you know. And this was so different from Nora Sakavic's first series. Like, if you don't like All for the Game, then like I feel like you could still like this. Like, I know a lot of people have like very polarized opinions on All for the Game, either love it or hate it, but I feel like if you're in either one of those two camps, you could still really enjoy this book because it is very different in like genre, in style, just in everything. So in this book you follow this woman who's kind of connected to this hub of supernatural activity, also called preternatural activity, which apparently is just a term, and I thought that it was just like made up in this book, but it was not. Kind of runs a halfway house for different like cryptids and creatures and all that stuff. The next book that I read was Heartstopper by Alice Oseman. It's a fantastic graphic novel, and the second one just came out earlier in July. I've loved all of Alice Oseman's books and works. Everything that she does is just like gold to me, and I love it so much. And so after I picked up her first or second book, I realized that she had a webcomic, which is Heartstopper. This graphic novel is set at a British boys' school in a small village in England. It is about a gay boy who ends up falling for one of his new friends who is incredibly nice to him. Overall, it's just a very cute, wholesome story. As I mentioned, it is available for free online through Tumblr and Tapas. The next thing I read in June was Stage Dreams by Melanie Gilman. I believe I got this as an ARC on NetGalley. This was a cute graphic novel. I feel like I can say that about all of them. I just really enjoy graphic novels, so they're always going to be something that appeals to me. But I feel like this one is a lot different because it was not a contemporary graphic novel, which is the majority of things that I read. This one was set during the Civil War era, and it involved a trans girl who's running away from the draft because she feels like people do not respect her identity and that they are going to make her fight in the war as a man, which she is not. While she is running away, she ends up being kidnapped by this mysterious figure who everybody is so scared of. This mysterious figure does turn out to be a young woman, and a sapphic woman at that, who ends up falling for our other main character. They end up going on this quest to combat the Confederacy and steal some documentation that they can give to the other side of the war. It's just like this very fun adventure, and not in the sense of adventure that I usually get through like fantasy or just like action films or anything like that. This is like very different Civil War era stuff. The next thing I read is a bit of a hefty one here, and that is On a Sunbeam by Tilly Walden. This is a huge graphic novel, and I picked it up at the store when I was buying some other graphic novels, and it was just sitting there, so I decided that I had to pick it up. This is a sci-fi graphic novel about a cast of characters on a spaceship going to different planets to do construction work on temples, anything that's really falling apart, stuff like that. Sometimes it is just like preserving the stuff, and sometimes it is turning it into something like a classroom or an office building, something that they're not really for, but they are contracted to do this, so they must. It's also told in two timelines, so you have the present, which is that with the whole spaceship thing, and then you have the past, which is during one of the characters' high school years, I believe. It is when she is at this boarding school on a different planet, and she is falling in love with this one girl. It's kind of like an overarching romance. While one of the characters is not mentioned throughout the majority of the other section of the graphic novel, you realize that that is a lot of reasoning for what the other character does. Final two books that I want to talk about kind of go together. They're from the same publishing house, and that would be a quick and easy guide to queer and trans identities and a quick and easy guide to they them pronouns. These are both graphic novels. The first one just goes through general explanation of different queer and trans identities, as it mentions, also talking about like what it means to come out, what dysphoria is, and gender expression, all that stuff. It kind of goes more in depth than I thought it was going to. I thought that it was just going to go through like the different letters of the acronym, and then this was specifically about they them pronouns and people who use them. I feel like sometimes people try and complain and say that they them pronouns are like some new construction, but like they did it all the way back to Shakespeare and before. And overall, this just shows how to be respectful even if you don't personally relate to using they them pronouns. That is the end of my June wrap up. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye!